on 95.3 FM in Windhoek, Desert Radio. The Bold One.
The time on the clock is 7:31, so it is about that time for us to get into some conversation for the morning. Now, all eyes are on Kenya at the moment as they yesterday held their fifth presidential election since the introduction of multi-party politics in 1991. Now, in studio this morning, we're joined by Kenya's High Commissioner to Namibia, that is Ambassador Michael Siali, who has served as the clerk of the Kenyan National Assembly, one of the most important positions in the East African country, as this is the person that is in charge of a lot of the ongoing affairs of the parliament. And he will be talking to us about various issues, including the current happenings back home, specifically the elections that took place yesterday. Ambassador, good morning and welcome to Desert Radio.
Thank you, Lorna and John.
It's really good to have you here because, of course, we've been keeping a very keen eye on the elections with the voting that took place yesterday. So I think perhaps to start us off, just for some context, talk to us about what made this year's elections unique and why they are as important as they are.
Thank you. People say they are unique, but in our case, maybe because the current president, the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, is finishing his term according to the Constitution. So whichever way it is, we're going to have a new president elected in Kenya. Two, there are more women contestants this time round. In fact, in some positions for deputy president, we quite out of the 4 presidential candidates, 3 of them have actually chosen women to be their running mates. And even when you go to local elections, counties where we have election for governors as well. We elect our governors. Quite a number of them are contesting, and it appears they are really coming out nicely. So that makes it unique in that way. Otherwise, we have had multi-party elections since 1991, and every 5 years we have had elections.
Yeah, and you rightfully said President Kenyatta is stepping down after his 2 terms, which he is required to do by the Constitution. But that doesn't seem to be the case for some other African countries. There's a big contrast there, as we see, some other African leaders still staying on beyond 2 terms, whether it's required by the Constitution or not. Taking this into consideration, talk to us about what this means for Kenyan democracy.
We amended the Constitution in 1992 to bring in first multi-party elections. 2, to have a fixed term of the president. And since Moi, the former president, had served previously under the one party and there was no fixed term, once the fixed term came in fact, the former president, Moi, subsequently Honorable Kibaki, and Uhuru have all had fixed term. They have served 2 terms each, and thereafter they've been able to hand over power according to the Constitution. People felt that it is good to have a president serving for a fixed term. There's an argument whether it should have been 5 years or 7 years, but at least they felt that it is good to have one to serve for a fixed term, and it's good for our country. The arguments as whether to extend in terms of only fixed term, whether it is 5 or 7, but generally they believe it's good to have a fixed term for a president.
And then, a lot of the conversation around this election has been how close the contestation would be between the 2, what is seemingly the leading candidates, that's Raila Odinga and William Ruto. And we know that the president put his backing behind Odinga, while Ruto is his vice president, which for some people around the continent, as we're watching this, it's kind of odd knowing that Odinga and the president, in the past haven't been the closest of allies. So from where you're seated and just seeing how the politics is playing out, what do you make of that situation? And if you are so liberal enough to speak about what the leaning might look like once the tally comes in.
No, under our new Constitution, we have an independent electoral commission and boundaries commission. They are the one in charge of the elections. I wouldn't want to go to a situation where I will want to give anything in terms of results. Even now, although the newspapers are trying to show us the indication, it is only the Electoral Commission that will have to verify and announce to the nation. The other matters is really about national cohesion, building the unity of the state. Each country has its own way of doing things.
Yes.
And I think we leave it at that.
Fair enough.
And then, Ambassador, I think one other thing that, one aspect that many people have been honing into in these elections is the aspect of violence. I mean, we saw what happened in 2017 and in 2007 as well, but reports have been coming through and it looks relatively peaceful. Can you then say that Kenyans have moved on and there will be no repeat of the 2007 violence, particularly from what we saw yesterday, since there weren't any reports of any sort that include violence?
First and foremost is to assure our listeners, whether they're in Namibia or anywhere, that the elections are actually peaceful. Since 2007, when we had an issue on election results, we amended the constitution, the 2010 constitution, and in it we brought in institutions, strong institution to manage this process. One of them is the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, where we have independent commissioners and they do their things, they are funded well. And two, the same Electoral Commission has been reviewing the processes to make sure that we have free and fair and credible results of an election. Two, we also now have a Supreme Court. Before 2010 Constitution, we didn't have a Supreme Court. There was a High Court and Court of Appeal. And there would be issues if a contestant was aggrieved. With the coming in of the Supreme Court, we now have an avenue for any candidate who feel aggrieved to go to court and seek relief. And indeed, you are aware that in the last general election, they actually announced elections and we had to do a repeat election. So that time before in 2007 and later on, people felt there was no avenue to present grievances and all that. But with a very strong institution, the Electoral Commission, and more importantly, the Supreme Court, really anybody who has an issue should go to court and seek relief. And we've seen it, and the court has been firm in implementing the Constitution. And in addition, we also have state organs. We have the National Cohesion Body that has been preaching peace. We have independent prosecutor at the moment, actually Office of the Public Prosecutor, which is an independent body. We have we have Anti-Corruption Commission. So there are many independent bodies now that watch this exercise, and most of the grievances and other challenges are in. So I want to assure you that with the amendment of the Constitution, creation of very strong institutions which are independent, there would be no room really for violence against, because people feel all their issues will be addressed. And people have moved on, I can tell you that. And if you ask them, even yesterday I was saying, we want to go vote, go back, eat and wait for the results and move on with life. Yeah.
And then just before we move on from talking about the elections and the presidency of the country, I think in finality, perhaps let's reflect on, from your view, some of the achievements and some of the challenges of President Kenyatta's administration, just as a closing off on that note.
Oh, thank you. It's excellent. The president has done a lot for the country in terms of infrastructure. If you 10 years down the line, we have got very good roads now. In fact, if you visit Nairobi, Will Be Express is a Nairobi Expressway from the airport all the way to the city. They have done almost 10,000 kilometers of tarmac road, which were not there. And all areas are really covered. In terms of infrastructure roads, the president has done well. Two, electricity connection. You know, in Kenya, unlike you people where you stay mainly in towns, as we are spread all over the country, and, you know, connecting electricity connectivity was very low. It has been done wonderful. I mean, almost all roads, towns, villages have power, which is really a plus for the president. We also have dams. We used to have very little dams, water dams, which they have been constructed. And even in health, universal health care. Before COVID, we had very few beds. In fact, I think we had around 500 ICU beds, and most of them were in Nairobi. Now we have almost 5,000 beds all over the country spread in all our 47 regions. So in terms of universal health care, the laws has been put in place and we are better off than what we were. And then, of course, the national unit. The president came together with the former leader of opposition, minority leader, in what is famous called a handshake, where your own president, in fact, came and also engaged them. And it has brought unity. And, national unity is something that is very important in a country. That's why countries like Tanzania, they say, Nyerere, other than that, he did brought national unity together.
Yeah.
And that is where we should go as Africa, that we may have challenges among ourselves, but we need to work as brothers and sisters for the common good. And the president has really done that and something. Of course, there is one challenge. Even the president himself has expressed that. He would have wanted us to amend the constitution. We've seen some minor weaknesses in this constitution, not bad one. Like at the moment, each county or region is entitled to get 15% of the national revenue. So the national revenue is collected, the taxes is subdivided between the national government and the counties or the devolved counties. And they get 15%. There was an amendment, a proposed amendment in what we are calling BBI, Building Bridges Initiative, to increase from 15 to 30. That would be a lot of money.
Yes, yeah.
The law do not, the court say the due process was not followed and many other things. And to the president, he felt if this one had been done, it would have been good too, is an issue of representation. It is not, it's not what you would call equitable. You would have a constituency with 20,000 people electing a member of parliament, and you have a constituency of 100,000 people. So the amendment was trying to say, let us also use numbers, so that the proportionality and the equality of vote, that was to be brought in. And he felt if it had been done, things would have been better. But there's room for that. After elections again, the matter can be revisited. And it's one of the areas the president felt should have happened to him, but it never happened. Nevertheless, yeah.
Right. Now, let's move on to your new role as the High Commissioner to Namibia from Kenya. You have been here before, as we spoke a little bit about off-air. That was about 20 years ago. You're back now in the Kenyan High Commission office as the head there. Speak to us about how you've settled in so far.
First and foremost is to express our satisfaction and appreciation for the people of Namibia, the warm-hearted people of Namibia, for their warm welcome, right from the government officials who met us at the airport all the way to State House on 28th of July, when the President, Dr. Hage Geingob, really received our credentials. I'm grateful. We shared wise ideas. He has a long history about the struggle and all that. And therefore, I'm actually here for 2 weeks now, because I arrived in the evening of 27th, or Wednesday. And I'm coming back home, as I say. I was here in 2002, coming with members of parliament who came in for the Commonwealth Parliamentary Association International Conference. And I remember we went to the parks, we went to a number of places, we interacted with our people. I'm very happy to have been posted to Namibia. We have a very strong, cordial relationship between Kenya and Namibia, right from 1960s when we contributed to SWAPO during the struggle, and more importantly during the United Nations Transition Agency, Assistance Group, UNTAC, when Kenyan military officers and our own administrators came and oversaw the exercise. And those relationships have really been cemented. Your president has been to our country twice. The president had Uhuru Kenyatta came in 2019. And that relationship is really cordial and strong. And as an ambassador, it is my responsibility to ensure that those relations are strengthened in many ways. I want to assure Namibians and Kenyans and everybody else that I'm up to the task. I've come. I look forward to successful relationship and duty of tour in Namibia.
And perhaps just to expand on that a little bit, let's talk about the bilateral relations between the two countries. What exactly are we cooperating in or looking forward? What areas or projects do we want to work together on as two nations?
Yeah. Thank you, Lorna. First is, of course, political consolidation and the political and diplomatic consolidation, which, as I've indicated, there have been visits by the heads of state, both countries, to cement and make sure that we are together. But there are areas where we really need to work together. One of them is transportation. Namibia has very good port facilities. You remember the dry docks, they call it inland clearing ports. We didn't have in Kenya. And when the president from Kenya visited us, we started processes. So we are actually shortly entering an MOU between NAMPort and the Kenya Ports Authority to share ideas, knowledge, research, and even ship repairs. And at the moment, we are working in Kenya on 2 dry ports in a town near Nairobi, away from Mombasa coastal town. And I've had an opportunity, in fact, to visit the other day, this week actually, last Monday, Namport, where I met the CEO, my brother Andrew Kanime, and we spoke about it. I think we are just about to enter into that MOU. It will really strengthen. 2 is the issue of fishing. You have a modernized fishing compared to ours in Kenya. This is an area where we want to share again knowledge. What we are having is a situation where we are saying comparative advantage. You do best what you do. Each country, we need to trade together. It's not to the disadvantage of the other person. So what you do best, you get knowledge. And there's this idea of best practices. I keep telling people, you don't have to really reinvent an engine or a wheel. Where your own brother in a neighboring country has done something, you just learn from their own experiences. And in fishing, I know we have brought people here to learn, and we are now having fishing landing ports in Mombasa, which we initiated immediately. The president came here, and there is something going on well. We are happy about that. There's one area where we need to work on, the food sufficiency,
Food security.
Yeah, security, when we talk about food not coming from Ukraine, you wonder when your own brother and sister across the border has it. Of course, the challenge has been because of the transportation, the network, and all that. That is one, and the other issues. In Kenya, we have got a very good research. Seed production institute. It's called Kenya Seed Company. A variety of seeds are made for different regions. And I know there have been talks between us and Namibian authorities to have the seed company work closely and even establish a company here that would produce seeds so that, they are able to say to Erongo region what is good for there when you go to the north of Shakati, when you go to the south, what is good. And that is one area which I really want to follow up. So it is sharing experience, let the people have adequate food so that you don't have to really import from far. And then we also have a relationship on health. We have nurses who have worked here before, assisted education, ICT, and many other areas. And it is my hope that these MOUs which you have entered and the relationship will be strengthened for the benefit of the two states. Your brothers and sisters, it's always my wish. I've insisted on the word comparative advantage. If you are good in one area, let us work on that and then we share. And I think there is a lot. In fact, at the moment, Namibia actually is exporting more than us to this country, but we are happy, we are working together. And there is a lot of facilities here, working around the land and all that,
And speaking just on that, you touched on how Kenya has learned from Namibia just in terms of the fishing sector. I guess in turn, perhaps in any sector, in any area, what can Namibia then also learn from Kenya?
Obviously, the one of them is the production of seeds.
That
what
you've touched on.
Really. Once you have seeds here, you are able to grow and produce. The second one has been the issue of the health. You remember we brought in nurses, and I think they have gone to that. Another area which I think we need to encourage, which all of us, and is the issue of the flowers. Yeah, we have got very good at floriculture in Kenya. And that is an area that really needs to be encouraged. With your farms and water, you can do wonders because you have the sun, the sunshine and all that. And then finally, the issue of transportation. We really have been pushing to have direct flights from Windhoek to Nairobi and the other way around. If you are able to manage, and I think there was talks about that, we are almost concluding an MOU between the airport authorities and our own in Kenya, because that will really assist in transportation of goods and services.
100%.
So it is really in farming that we really want to assist that experience from Kenya to Namibia, and as a growing state, it will really change this country. You have a big land mass, fertile, may I tell you, it is only water and other issues here and expertise, and you will make a difference as a country.
And then perhaps as we begin to wind down, if we can just take a more overall regional look at the commitments that Kenya has made in working closely with other African countries. If you can perhaps share some of the programs and initiatives that your country is collaborating with others on, including specifically in the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. What is Kenya working on in that sector?
In terms of the Continental Free Trade Area, I mean, all of us have signed. And including Namibia and Kenya. I know there's one of them is to come in now to have agreement between SADC and the East African community, so that we are all together now. You are speaking the same language. There would be a road to be built from Cape Town all the way to the north. It allows transportation of goods and services. We really want to take advantage of this free trade area now to exchange trade. May I tell you, the relationship now, other than the political and diplomatic consultation, is trade. And sharing. It will be good. You'll be surprised how much you can do with your neighbor, rather than being far away, and you will still get the same goods and services. And this is an area where East African community and Kenya has really moved in and make sure that we working together and open up. And I think there's an opportunity now between Kenya and Namibia using this free trade area to really reinvigorate the trading practices and measures that have been put in place. It's one of the assignments which I think I have, and we have to do something about that. Thank you.
Well, Ambassador, it's been a pleasure talking to you. An official welcome from Desert Radio to your new home. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning, and we do hope that the discussions that we have spoken about now, or the points that we've spoken about now, do come to fruition. The benefits for both countries, of course.
Thank you, Lorna and John, for giving me this opportunity. It's my first time, obviously. Not even in Kenya, where we used to work. We are public officers. We share away from there, giving us an opportunity. Let me promise that we'll come back again for a number of these.
Definitely.
It will be my pleasure again to speak up and come here and participate in this, especially as we review. Lastly, as I conclude, I wish to assure Kenyans in Namibia that the election process is good, it's peaceful. We are wishing the best candidate to win, but more importantly, because of this institutions we have, I talked about the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, the Supreme Court and others, and the government, the state organs, it will really reflect the will of the people. Yeah, it will. And soon, let us all wait and for the Electoral Commission to give us but we are happy. Thank you for your prayers, being concerned about your neighbor. All will be well.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ambassador.